Hi everyone, it's Rax bringing you my most requested guide by far, how to play the outrageously powerful LoN Thorns build for the Necro. This is one of the best builds in the entire game, especially for killing Rift Guardians. But don't take my word for it. Let's jump into an 8-second clip from last night's stream where I'm fighting the Choker, who is just a mediocre boss. And in 4-player 129 GRs, this boss has 77 quadrillion health. So let's jump in when he's at about 75% health, and let's see how long it takes me to kill him with no pylon.
I'm rushing you, Mr. Joker, but maybe if you could, there you go. Oh,
baby. Got him.
Lord.
That was unbelievable. That was like 57 quadrillion damage in 1 second. I'm going to take you through and show you exactly how to do that. Before we get into the full guide, there are a few things that I want to explain about the build so you know what to expect. First of all, about this video, this is going to be the group version. I'm going to show you how to play and all the different aspects of playing as the RGK of a meta group. Now, RGK stands for Rift Guardian Killer, and that's where you play in a 4-man group where there's 2 tanks, usually a monk and a barb. There's usually a wizard that clears the whole rift, and you are the RGK, the Rift Guardian Killer. When the Rift Guardian spawns at the end, it's your job to kill him. Okay? This is the group video. This is also the best solo build for Necros, but I'm going to have to make a different video on that because the skills are different and the playstyle is a little bit different. Okay? So look for that video to come. The good news is if you have a lot of the gear for the group build, then you can use a lot of the same pieces for the solo build. Alright everyone, let's go through the gear, and then after we cover the skills, the paragons, and the cubes, I'll tell you about the playstyle, what you want to be doing in the Rift, and then we'll go over every single Guardian and how to get them down and tips and tricks on what you need to know to be successful with this build. So starting off with Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang. Let's talk about the stats that we see on here first. We see attack speed, elite damage, cooldown reduction. These are all incredibly important for this build. Remember that Thorns cannot crit. So you will see no crit hit chance here. You will see no crit hit damage. Attack speed increases the rate at which we attack the boss, which is good because we have Bane of the Stricken. We want to be attacking as fast as possible to build those Stricken stacks to get him down. That's why we take attack speed, not because attack speed affects our skeletons or anything like that. Damage against elites does work on Thorns, so whenever possible, if you see that affix, that's another thing to pick up. Cooldown is important because when you activate your Land of the Dead, your skeletons are going to do massive damage to the boss when the boss hits them. So that's why we're going for cooldown. And then on essentially every single piece except weapon and Andariels, we want thorns, thorns, thorns as a secondary. Thorns, thorns. Thorns everywhere, okay? And that's why we use the topaz in the weapon. Damage doesn't matter. The emerald doesn't matter for the crit hit damage. Thorns cannot crit. Trag'Oul's is best in slot because we do use Grim Scythe. So we're going to be applying all the curses, and we do 200% damage to the Rift Guardian. Okay. Bone Ringer, this is what makes the entire build work. The damage bonus of command skeletons increases by 30% per second every time they spend attacking the same target. So in the first second they do 30, and then 60, 90, 120. It keeps adding up, adding up. And so after a while, the boss is essentially just one-shotting himself. with his abilities. And once again, you're going to see a common theme: damage to elites, cooldown, and command skellies can roll on offhand and chest and shoulders. We're going to want to pick it up on all three because that does help us with our thorns, because the damage primarily comes from your skellies getting hit. Okay, and intelligence does increase the damage of thorns, so we will take int wherever we can, and vitality as well to stay alive. Illusory boots, you really have to use these because we don't have any mobility skills. You have to be able to walk through the mobs. These are only obtainable through bounties. I believe they drop in Act 2 bounties. So you want to get a pair of these. They need to be ancient. Hopefully by now. I should point out this is a LoN build, so everything needs to be at least ancient or better to get the LoN bonus. Every item needs to be ancient or primal ancient. So if you get a pair of illusory boots from bounties, it may be worth it to use your bounty mats to re-roll it to get a pretty good pair. And remember, we've got to get thorns as the secondary on all these pieces, but this piece is to walk through enemies. You are going to need it, and otherwise we're taking pure survivability. Swampland Waders. These roll physical elemental damage. Thorns does benefit from physical elemental damage, so we're going to pick that up here. We're going to pick it up on our amulet and on our bracers and on our Endarials. And once again, we need Thorns damage. This pretty much only comes from a Witch Doctor, so you can either gamble on a Witch Doctor, or another trick, you can craft pants or gamble for yellow pants, log on to a level 1 Witch Doctor, you don't need to level it, throw in a level 70 yellow item, and upgrade it to legendary with recipe 3 in the Kanai's Cube, and you actually have a pretty decent chance to get Swampland Waders. And again, they've got to be ancient or better. Stone of Jordan, this is best in slot. This is really, really hard to get. To get an ancient Stone of Jordan with physical, with thorns, and a socket, good luck getting that. So if you can get a Stone of Jordan without the thorns damage, but everything else, that's okay, as long as it's ancient or better. This item's tough to get, but again, it's got the damage against elites 30% and the physical. It's going to be best in slot ring. And we use Enforcer to make our skellies do 60% more damage with Works with Thorns. Convention of the Elements, int, attack speed, CDR. Same concept with Thorns. Boyarsky's chip adds Thorns. Pretty self-explanatory. Dainty's Binding, we are cursing absolutely everything. So we need that 50% damage reduction. You really do need it. In addition to all the other buffs that your groups are giving you to stay alive. If you die, it's pretty bad. If you are pretty far into the Guardian and you die, it's more than likely going to be a wipe. So you've got to stay alive. We take full survivability here with Thorns. The glove and the shoulder slots are very up to you. It doesn't really matter which ones you use. There aren't any great ones to use. Some people use Tasker and Theo, but I don't think the attack speed actually helps. And Pauldrons of the Skeleton King for a free cheat death is a good option. Another good option for solo is Death Watch Mantle. I'm hearing rumors that procs Crisbin's sentence. So look for Death Watch Mantles and Pauldrons of the Skeleton King. Otherwise, just grab, for these two pieces, just grab whichever ones roll the right statistics on them. But again, Invite, Attack Speed, CDR, Thorns, and St. Arshu's Gauge is nice for the shield, because we need to stay alive. And Pauldrons of the Skeleton King, same reason, because we need to stay alive, and we can get command skellies here. Endarials, it gives you physical damage. It's the only helmet that can do that. It makes it best in slot. I don't think it's possible to get the combination where you can roll Thorns as a secondary. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's possible, so you're not going to be able to get Thorns on this piece, but that's okay. Aquila, When above 90% resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. We have to stay alive. So we need to keep our essence above 90, and this is going to help us get through the rift and stay alive on the Guardian. Remember, if we die, the Bone Ringer stacks that we have been building get erased. So it's absolutely mandatory that we stay up. And we can get command skeletons here as well. Wisdom of Kalan increases the maximum stacks of bone armor by 5. It helps with the survivability. Again, we can get the physical and the CDR here. If you don't get intelligence, if you get attack speed, that would be fine as well. Just remember, we don't want any crit hit damage or crit hit chance. It's good to know what you're looking for with the Thorns build, because it's very different from looking for other typical pieces of gear. So you kind of have to know what you're looking for. Otherwise, you probably didn't save any of the good pieces that are actually good for this build. And then finally, Nemesis Bracers to spawn an elite. I don't know of a good way to incorporate strong arms here. Maybe there's a good way, so if you get a really nice pair with strong arms with physical, keep those as well. But most people that I see just run Nems. So another option would be Prowlers for the 7% attack speed. The build is pretty flexible with shoulders, gloves, and bracers. You can kind of just pick whatever you want as long as it's got the good stats, but everything else should be these items. So that's the gear. Let's go into the skills. Land of the Dead Plague Lands. You're going to see a theme. All poison. We'll get to that in a second. Remember, all poison. Land of the Dead, you pop this when you know the boss is about to do a big attack. That's exactly what I did with the Choker in the footage that you saw earlier, and I erased him out of the Diablo universe. Very satisfying. So there'll be a little bit of an art for you to learn with the different Guardians on when to use Land of the Dead, and sometimes you can get multiple lands of the dead in at the beginning, and when he's going to do his massive attack later, because remember, as Guardians' health decreases, a lot of them change their move sets, and a lot of times we're waiting for one of those big moves to come out to delete them. So sometimes you can use Land of the Dead in the beginning, and then a minute elapses, and then you can use it again on their big attack. So that's our big cooldown. Death Nova Blight, we leave a patch on the ground. It slows enemies. That should proc our Crispin Sentence, and they deal less damage. We're just looking for poison skills here. Bone Armor Dislocation. Now, this keeps you want to keep this at 15 stacks all the time. 15 because we have Wisdom of Kalan. It's going to help you survive. When you're on the Rift Guardian using this ability, the ideal order of operations is boss does a gigantic attack on your skellies, and then you activate it. Okay? Be very mindful and pay attention as you play this build on when you use this skill on the Guardian. For example, if you've been waiting for 30 seconds and the boss is finally going to do this gigantic attack that you've been waiting for, if you use this skill and stun them before they do their attack, you just lost the attack. And that can make the difference between wiping or not. So let them do the attack, then they start to get chopped. Hopefully it's an AoE that ticks, and then hit them with Dislocation. It'll proc your Crispin Sentence, and hopefully they'll get murdered. Okay? So pay attention to that. Bone Spear, it's just another poison skill. We just keep throwing out these little poison skills to keep our Nair stacks up, which we'll go over in a second. Grim Scythe, Curse Scythe, it's a poison skill. We just attack, and it automatically applies all the curses. I call it cutting the weeds. I just jump into the big pack all rift, and I just sit around and I just cut the weeds. When an elite or any monster drops below 15% health, if you've applied frailty to them, they'll instantly die. So pay attention to that, and you will get a lot of the elite kills as your wizard brings the mobs very low. That curse will not only help you survive with Dainty's Binding, but it will give you a lot of the kills. In Command Skeletons Kill Command, this is what makes the entire build work. We command them one time on the Guardian, and let it keep stacking and stacking and stacking. If you recast it, it resets all of your stacks, so that's probably a wipe. And if you die, it resets all of your stacks. It's probably a wipe unless these unfortunate things happen at the very beginning of the rift. Okay? And in general, what does all of your damage is the Guardian hitting your skellies. You have 7 of them. You want them to do AoE high damage attacks on your skellies. Passives. Aberrant Animator. Your minions gain 200% of your thorns. Self-explanatory. It's a thorns build. We take the thorns passive. Eternal Torment. Your curses cost 50% less and last forever. It's the last forever part that we care about. With our Tragghouls having the 100% to apply a curse when we swing our scythe, we just want everything to have all 3 curses. You're just going to be a gardener all rift, just cutting the weeds and putting all the curses on everything. This is a great passive to take. Swift Harvesting increases the attack speed of Bone Spikes, Siphon Blood, and Grim Scythe. We want the Grim Scythe, obviously. The attack speed is going to help us stack Stricken faster. We're trying to kill the Guardian. We need as many stacks as fast as possible. Now, a lot of people here take Final Service, and there are, I'm going to be honest, I don't know for sure. There are people who say that Final Service, if you proc, that it wipes out your Bone Ringer stacks, and I believe that that's true. But I've tested it, and they do stay commanded on the target, so further testing needs to be done. But I find it better to use standalone. The reason is we have 7 skellies up, so it's a 30% bonus to your armor on the Guardian. However, the entire rift, you're just constantly killing your skellies, which I'll go over in a minute. So it's essentially a 100% armor buff. And I've found that using the armor buff has been more valuable for my survivability than Final Service. So there's a little bit of wiggle room here. Maybe more research needs to be done. If I were you, I'd take standalone and just consider, if you're on the Guardian, you're just not going to die. Go in with that mentality, and I think that's the best way to play. Now here's Black Death in the cube. Each poison skill increases our damage by 100%. That's why we use all poison skills. So if you're playing correctly on the Guardian, you will have 4 stacks of poison skills. Now Rax, why would I have 4 when you use 6 skills? Remember, we cast Command Skeletons once on the Guardian, so that stack is lost. And we only pop Land of the Dead when he does his gigantic cooldown. That would bring us to 5 stacks. These 4 skills are the ones that we're constantly rotating. So if you're playing correctly, you'll almost always have 4, and when you pop Land of the Dead, you'll have 5. Do not recast Command Skeletons on the Guardian. Bloodsong Mail. While in Land of the Dead, Command Skeletons deals 125% additional damage and gains a bunch of runes. It just helps you when you pop Land of the Dead. The Guardian is going to take massive damage. Wait until they're a little low, and you've got your Stricken stacks, as you saw in the Choker video. Once he dropped his Poison Bomb, I popped it, and then I popped Dislocation, and sayonara. And then finally, Crispin's Sentence. This is a staple in every single DPSing Necro build, and this one is no exception. You deal 100% increased damage against slowed, or you deal triple that for any other kind of crowd control effect. Bone Armor Dislocation. Okay. Let's go into the Paragon Points. I always like to do my videos as if you're Paragon 400. Kind of getting up there, but where should you really put your points into? Maximum Essence does nothing for us because we're not using Raylena Shadowhook, so let's go with Movement Speed and then the rest into Intelligence. By the way, no one's going to make fun of you. Don't be afraid to put some points into Vitality. You have to survive. If you can't survive, put some into vitality. You already knew what I was going to pick here. We already talked about it 5 times. No crit chance, no crit damage, so we want attack speed and CDR. For all intents and purposes, you could leave this at 0. It doesn't make any difference. Armor and life are good. All resist isn't bad. You get diminishing returns from having intelligence, but this one's a good one as well. And life per second, I mean, anything helps. Then in utility, pick up life per hit on your scythe. We're cutting the weeds constantly, so that's not a bad one. And resource cost reduction will help you cost a little bit less when you command your skeletons to keep your essence above 90% to activate your Aquila buff. But really, I mean, like always, this section's not that helpful. All right, let's talk briefly about the playstyle. Then we'll very quickly go through each Guardian and talk about them, and you will be ready to dominate with this LoN Thorns build. So, during the Rift, as you're moving with your group, typically, if you stop right here, and you were coming from this way, the Barbarian, the pole barb, will go back and pull whatever was behind forward. This is a good opportunity for you to apply your curse to activate your Dainty's bindings. You can survive. And run forward and aggro some mobs. You can command your skellies on them to make them mad. And then run back to the group to kind of help gather a bunch of stuff for the wizard to destroy. When you're in the middle here, you want to activate your bone armor and keep it at 15 stacks at all times. Okay, there's no monsters here, so I got no stacks, but you want to keep it at 15 stacks to stay alive. And you want to continuously command skeletons into the middle of the pack. But Rax, you just told me command your skeletons one time on a target and then never cast it again. It's different when you're going through the actual floor. I spam command skeletons in the middle because for 2 reasons. 1, I don't want my skeletons on the outside keeping monsters from running in. If I continuously command them in the middle, that won't happen. And another reason why I do it is every time I command them, they die. And that is helpful because of my standalone passive. I get 100% armor when they're all dead. I only have 30% when 7 of them are alive. So keeping them dead constantly helps me stay alive. Now, another thing is when you're in the middle, make sure you're cutting the weeds. Make sure you keep attacking everything to keep applying all of the curses, because you want them to all have all the curses. That way when they drop below 15% health, they all die. So that's all you do. You move with the group, you run forward, you aggro some stuff, you come back, you activate your bone armor, you cut the weeds, and then you keep spamming command skeletons in the middle, have them die to not disrupt what the rest of your team is doing. Now, there might be some pro plays you can do, like putting it on a yellow, dragging it forward, building stacks on it the whole time, and getting the yellow down. But that's usually not necessary because the wizards are so strong with their meteor build that they can take care of it themselves. That's what you do during the Rift. When you get to the Guardian phase, in general, you want to find a good spot for the Guardian. You and your team are going to want to move somewhere on the map that's ideal for you. So what is an ideal place? An ideal place is wherever their attacks are going to hit your skeletons with a very high probability. So if the Guardian is right here, and my skellies are right here, I guess my skellies are afraid of my banner. If my skellies are right here attacking them, I'm usually right here, stacking Stricken, and a lot of times my group is standing right next to me or right next to my skeletons, inviting the Guardian to hit us. Okay? It's not the same for every Guardian, but in general, we want everything to be on the skeletons. And if you can find a very narrow enclosed place like a hallway or a corner or a little room like this, if you could bring the Guardian in here and all stand in a corner, in general, that is a good idea, because all the skellies are right here, all their attacks will probably come right here, and the boss is going to kill himself. Okay, so the main idea here, the main thought to keep in your head with your group is where should I be standing? When the progress bar is getting close to the end and you know where you're going to be, what map you're going to be fighting the Guardian on, be thinking about where should we kite the boss and how should we position ourselves to make sure that we kill the Guardian as fast as possible. Okay, with that, let's jump into the Guardian tier list, if you will, and let's very quickly run through all the different Guardians and what you need to look for to get them down. All right, to quickly go over the bosses, I want to give credit to who actually made this, actually never mind on Reddit. So thank you, my friend, for this. And let me pull up this little cheat sheet that he has built that I will put in the description. Okay, and let's quickly look at the bosses. So Blighter is the very best. He sticks his hand in the ground, he puts poison everywhere, and he murders himself. Okay, so Blighter is the dream. I'll let you read over this. I know this video is getting kind of long, so we're going to breeze through this, but I'll let you read this all in detail. Agnadox is a good boss. His fire breath that he breathes forward hits all of your skeletons, and he essentially cooks himself. Bloodmaw is great when he jumps around. A little trick that I've heard, and I've tried it, and it works very well, is when Bloodmaw starts to jump around, hold force standstill and just stand there. And he'll jump around, and he almost always jumps back to you. That seems to be way more effective than trying to chase him around with your skellies. Just stand still with force standstill and swing, and that seems to go very well. Bone Warlock doesn't really do any damage to your skellies, so unfortunately, if you see this boss, you're going to have to leave. I haven't found a good way to kill him at all. It's very upsetting, but with this build, there are some Guardians that you just cannot kill. It's the price you pay to be able to erase some of the other ones. Cold Snap is not good either. You can try to kill him. I mean, this is a little bit extreme, but in general, if you don't have a ton of time, you can't kill him in a reasonable amount of time. Crusader King is pretty good. He does his AoE swing attacks, which murder your skellies, as he calls out here, the big triple swing attacks. Not too bad. Ember, he drops meteors all the time. You guys need to stand together on the skellies. One thing about Ember that I will tell you, his explodey little fatty ads that spawn, they can kill you. Remember, if you die, it's a wipe. So I have the barb as, okay, good, he calls it out here, a good barb to pull away the explodey guys. So this is a very good guide that this guy's put together. Arathon's good. He puts poison down. Again, as we talked about earlier, put him in a room against a wall and just get hit by the poison and he'll die. Iscandiel, he says he's a decent boss. I haven't had too much luck with Iscandiel. He's all right. He's kind of meh. Hamlin is just a wipe. You can't kill Hamlin. If you see him, just leave. Infernal Maiden is good. Again, the AoE spin move is the best. That's what you want your skellies to be hit by. Mancarver, I don't know if I would say absolute shit tier, as this says. One little trick you can do, I haven't perfected it yet, but I have killed Mancarver several times, and it's very good when he uses his hooks. So I have someone run far away from the skellies, and he tries to hook, and he hits the skellies, and that murders Mancarver. So probably not quite as bad as it sounds right here. Orlash, I haven't had much luck with Orlash. I've heard that there's a trick to Orlash about killing him, but I haven't seen what it is. When I figure it out, I'll post it in the description below. I know there is a trick to killing Orlash, but I don't know what it is. Perdition's pretty good. He does a lot of damage to your skellies with essentially everything. Just try to stay alive. He's very dangerous. Perendi, similar thing, but with his falling rocks. Again, dangerous boss, don't die. Raziel, I get Raziel all the time, and he just murders himself with his lightning. This is a pretty easy boss to kill. not a problem. Rhyme is a very good boss as well. His ice damage just kills himself. Again, be careful, stay alive. Sandshaper, I just put in the middle. His meteor and his falling rocks. Try to get your skellies hit by it. Stand on top of them. Not great. Saxtrus and Stone Singer says not sure. I haven't had tremendous luck with either of them. Saxtrus has some AoEs, and Stone Singer has some ads, and he charges around. In my opinion, these aren't great bosses. Tetris or Tethris, he's one of those bosses that below 75% HP does a different attack, does those black pools. And the challenge is, as he explains here, getting him down to 75%, which is the same for Choker. Again, you saw that he said it wasn't a good boss, but once you give him below a certain threshold, you can slaughter him. I one-shot him. Binder shoots out the little poison bolts. I think it's possible to kill Binder, but you need quite a bit of time and hopefully a pylon. Choker, I just showed you the video of him. When you get him low enough, you can just destroy him with the poison. Another thing to keep in mind with bosses like the Choker and Tetris is if you have a conduit, it's very good to use that to get them down to that threshold and then murder them. So pay attention to your conduits. The Salius is like the worst. I can do absolutely nothing to Vesalius. I hope someone figures out a trick, but Vesalius I just leave instantly and cry. Voracity, you can kill Voracity. This is not true. It was probably discovered after he made this list. The trick to Voracity is you have to run away about a screen to a screen and a half away, and your skeletons will run to you, but they will still be commanded on Voracity. He's the guy that puts the poison fart clouds everywhere. Then what you do is you slowly walk back and have them re-enter the poison pool. If you keep doing that, if you run in, hit him a couple times for stricken, kite your skellies out, and send them back into the poison, you can kill Voracity. I killed Voracity yesterday at 129, no problem using this tactic. So, unlike the other bosses, don't get him in a little corner, because if the poison starts stacking on top of each other, you're going to die. But kite him in and out, and Voracity is definitely killable. So this is the more information has been found beyond this. Anyway, I'll post this link in the description. We made it. Well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I apologize for the length of the video, but I wanted to cover as many topics as I possibly could and give you guys as much knowledge so you can succeed with this build. And I have to thank you all. I recently got partnered with YouTube, which I'm very excited about, so I'm just going to be making tons more of these guides and gameplays for a long time to come. And I'm playing this build every day on my stream, and we're going to be going for as high as we can push for GR 150 and 4-man this season, and I'm going to be doing the solo pushes on here as well, so I'd love to have you come check me out over there. And please like, comment, and subscribe if this helped you, and I will see you again. Thank you very much.